Hello, and welcome to Heartland's Hazardous Material Training Program. Heartland Express is registered as a hazardous materials carrier, and training is required for all drivers for hazardous material carriers. Whether you have a hazardous endorsement or not, you are required to have this training. Non-endorsed drivers can haul non-placarded loads and must be knowledgeable as to what they can and cannot transport. All Heartland drivers are considered hazmat employees. The purpose of this training is to educate you on how to identify hazardous materials, how to safely handle the material, and how to respond if an incident involving a hazardous material were to occur. The areas of training that we will be focusing on will include general awareness, including how to identify a hazardous material and safely transport, safety training, how to safely handle the product and how to respond to an incident, security, knowing what precautions to take while transporting a hazardous material, function specific, this would be additional training in areas that would involve specialty equipment such as a tanker. In-depth security, again, is another area where you would be handling a product such as radioactive that would require additional training. The federal government requires new employees to have this training within 90 days of employment and a refresher training course every 3 years. Heartland chooses to do a refresher training every 2 years to ensure compliance. The test you will be taking will document that you have received and understand the training. Classification. So what classifies a substance to be a hazardous material? The 49 CFR Code of Federal Regulations supplies the following definition of a hazardous material. A hazardous material is a substance or material that the Secretary of Transportation has determined is capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, and property when transported in commerce. Some products are also assigned to packing groups. There are 3 different packing groups. Packing Group 1 represents a great danger, while Packing Group 2 represents a medium danger, and Packing Group 3 represents a minor danger. Some classes of products do not have packing groups. Class 2, Class 7, 6.2, other than regulated medical waste, and ORM-D materials. Hazard classes. There are 9 different hazard classes. Some of the classes have subdivisions, for example, explosives. Class 1 explosives has 6 different subdivisions, which define the various degrees of the hazards. Division 1, for example, is a mass explosive possible, while Division 3 is fire minor blast. Class 2 is compressed gases and also has subdivisions. Class 2.1 is flammable, 2.2 non-flammable, and 2.3 toxic gas. Class 3, flammable liquids. Flammable liquids has no subdivisions. Class 4, flammable solids. 4.1 flammable solids, 4.2 spontaneously combustible products, and 4.3 dangerous when wet. Remember, any quantity of a 4.3 product requires a placard. Class 5, 2 subdivisions in Class 5, the 5.1 oxidizers and 5.2 organic peroxides. Class 6 are your toxic and infectious substances. 6.1 toxic or inhalation hazard, 6.2 infectious substances. Class 7 are your radioactive products. Class 8 corrosives. Class 9 is miscellaneous products. These are products that are not specifically identified in the hazardous material table. ORM identifies other regulated material. Some examples of those would be small arms or cartridges, car batteries, bleach, fragrances, lighters, aerosol cans. Here are a few examples of some different type packages you may see. When it comes to preparing the shipment, the shipper, not the carrier, is responsible for ensuring that the material shipped is packed in accordance with the regulations. The shipper uses the hazardous materials table to determine how to pack, label, and prepare shipping papers. Often shippers will try and place the blame on the carrier for problems with a packaging failure during a shipment, only to discover it was improper packaging. There are some specific instructions the shipper must adhere to when preparing a package for shipment. The size of the lettering must include the address of the shipper and receiver, and must include orientation arrows on most liquid non-bulk packages. There is a UN standard as to specific packaging for certain products. When it comes to marking, labeling, documentation, and placarding, it is important that it is done correctly to properly communicate the risk. Again, this is largely the shipper's responsibility. As a driver, you most likely are not going to know the proper packaging was used. However, if you are witnessing loading and spot a package with the orientation arrows upside down, that would be a concern. Notify the loader. Shipping papers. Now here is an area where the driver needs to pay close attention. If you were to be pulled in for an inspection, are you prepared? You are now hundreds of miles away from the shipper. Was the bill of lading signed? Is it your top document? Accurate shipping papers are a crucial component of that shipment. The shipping papers inform anyone who is to come in contact with the shipment of the risks associated with it, whether it is the dock worker, the driver, emergency response personnel, or enforcement officers. An enforcement officer will often first seek a copy of the shipping document to obtain important information pertaining to that shipment. When describing hazardous materials on shipping papers, there are 3 different ways this can be done. It can be listed first on the shipping paper. It can be entered in a color that contrasts with other items on the shipping paper, or it can be identified by placing an X before the proper shipping name in the column that is captioned HM. As an alternative, the letters RQ may be entered when appropriate. The most common way is using the X or the RQ in the hazardous material column, but the other ways are acceptable as well. For the driver, it is important to know that the shipping papers must be within your reach while you are seat belted in your seat, and that the hazardous paperwork is always your top document. The paperwork cannot be enclosed in a document holder. If there are multiple pages for the hazardous shipment, the pages must be numbered consecutively, and the first page must bear a notation specifying the number of pages, for example, page 1 of 4. They must include an emergency response telephone number as required, and shipping papers shall be left on the driver's seat or in the door pouch when they are not in the truck. Here is a sample of a typical bill of lading. Some required information includes the shipper's and the consignee's information. Then in the body of the bill you will see the quantity shipped, the type of packaging used, the weight, and the X in the HM or hazardous material column. Then there will be the description of the product, which must be in the following order: the UN number first, followed by the proper shipping name, then the hazard class, and then a packing group if there is one associated with that product. At the bottom of the bill you will see an area for the shipper's signature below the required statement, and finally the emergency response information. Placarding. When placards are required, the shipper is required to supply the appropriate placards to the driver. when it comes to placarding, that is a major red flag for a non-endorsed driver. If the shipper is offering placards for that shipment and you are a non-endorsed driver, stop. You cannot transport that load. Keep in mind that a non-endorsed driver can haul non-placarded loads, but a hazardous material endorsement is required if placards are required. If the shipper does supply the carrier with the appropriate placards for the load, then the carrier is required to have the placards properly displayed on the vehicle. So what needs to be placarded? Any quantity of a hazardous material listed in Table 1 must be placarded. An example of that would be dangerous when wet, class 4.3. Any quantity of that product must be placarded. Products that are listed in Table 2 require placards when more than 1,001 pounds. There are exceptions to that rule, so if not sure, ask. Here are a couple of examples where placarding requirements do not apply. Infectious substances, products that are ORM, other regulated materials, limited quantity packaging, and again, if you are not sure, always ask. There are several exceptions to products listed in Table 2 for placarding requirements, so never assume, always check. So where on your vehicle do placards need to be applied? Each bulk packaging, freight container, unit load device, transport vehicle, or rail car containing any hazardous material must be placarded on each side and each end of the vessel. Here is an example where placards should be applied. And remember, when applying placards, they must be at least 3 inches away from any other markings on your vehicle. Emergency response information. In the event of an emergency, emergency response information, including the emergency response telephone number, must be made available to authorities that respond to the incident. Emergency response information must contain, at a minimum, the following: the basic description and technical name of the hazardous material, immediate hazards to health, risk of fire or explosion, immediate actions to be taken in the event of an accident or incident, immediate methods for handling fires, initial methods for handling spills or leaks, or preliminary first aid measures. Emergency response information must be provided in the following manner. It must be printed legibly in English, available for use away from the package containing the hazardous material, be presented on the shipping paper or in a document other than the shipping paper, provided it contains all the necessary information. An example would be the SDS, that's the Safety Data Sheet, or the ERG Emergency Response Guidebook. The availability of the emergency response information is a requirement of both the carrier and facility operators. The emergency response guidebook shall be located in a place on the truck where the driver can reach it while seat belted. Here is a sample of the emergency response guidebook, and you can also download the emergency response guide app to your smartphone or iPhone. So if an incident were to occur, what do you do? Number 1, follow your carrier's procedures. Stop immediately. Never transport a leaking hazardous material. Call 911. Do your best without endangering yourself to contain the release. Call Heartland's accident hotline. Keep people away from the scene. Provide emergency responders with the shipping papers and emergency response information. Communicate the danger of the hazardous materials to emergency response personnel. Security plan. Any carrier who transports hazardous materials must have a security plan. Less than 1% of all the products Heartland hauls are hazardous materials, but there are still threats out there. Personnel security. Do not drop trailers in unauthorized lots. Make sure it is only in a secure lot, company lot, that vehicle is secured. Dropping a hazardous load can be considered as abandoning that load and subject the driver to high dollar fines. Verify where you're going. Unauthorized access. Verify any access to tunnels, bridges. C Tpat. C Tpat stands for Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism. What it is and why it exists? The intention is to help safeguard America's borders, thereby protecting the public from dangerous people and materials. So how can I help? Inspect your vehicle. Know what you're hauling. Pay attention to your surroundings. Secure your load. Verify your trailer seals. And what are you looking for? You're looking for explosives, drugs, people, anything out of place. Any suspicious activities, people asking about your load, people asking for rides. Participating in C Tpat involves a 17-point inspection. When you inspect your vehicle, thoroughly inspect all areas, including your bumper, your engine compartment, tires, trucks and trailers, the floor inside the truck, fuel tanks, cab, storage compartments, your air tanks, drive shafts, the fifth wheel, outside undercarriage, outside inside doors, floors, sidewalls, front walls, ceiling, roof, trims. If you're hauling a reefer, your refrigeration unit, your exhaust system. These terrorists and smugglers have amazing abilities to find ways to smuggle things across the border, and we have to do our part to help prevent it and stay safe. Thank you, and thank you all for taking your time and participating, and we want you all to be safe out there. Thank you.